Okay. All right. Welcome back to Nerds by Screenlight. My name is Aaron.
And I'm James.
And this is today. Our parent opener that we decided on was French fries versus tater tots.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just somewhere in there.
It's somewhere in there?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Like, I fall into the camp of like, how crunchy are the tater tots?
Oh, okay.
And that'll be my decider. Like, if you get a nice crunchy tater tot, that's good.
Yeah.
And it's like nice and piping hot.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But when they're soggy, it's like I will take any other even soggy French fries over a soggy tater tot.
That's an astute observation, sir.
I mean, it's just my camp is where
Yeah.
I'm at.
Yeah.
Because I've had some fantastic tater tots.
Yeah.
Nice and crunchy.
Yeah.
And you got a nice center and everything. Piping hot. A little bit of salt on it.
I would agree. Tater tots are. I will only have ketchup with my tater tots. That's an important ingredient you gotta have. But I agree. Like, if you have soggy tater tots, like, no, I'm not gonna have it. They gotta be crunchy. There's gotta be like, it's gotta be just right.
Yeah, and where they don't stick together in like a clump.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen this, but during the pandemic, people were talking about how you can put tater tots in a waffle and make tater tot waffles.
No.
Yes, this is a thing.
I was not aware of this.
Yes. So you get a whole bunch of tater tots from like the store in the bag or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you basically thaw them out, and then you mash them and you turn on your waffle iron, and then you just mash them in there, in the waffle, and then you do it for however long, and you have a tater tot waffle.
Does Zazzy Cafe have a waffle maker?
They do have a waffle maker. We'll
Aaron, are you on the same wavelength where I'm at?
We'll put a call out. We'll put a call out to Julie about some tater tot waffles.
Yeah.
Because it is hash brown, so it would be breakfast.
Yes.
It would work.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe mix some bacon in there. Oh,
yeah, there you go.
Right, that's going to be something.
Bacon tater tot waffles.
And on that note...
I'm just saying, I'm thinking about it.
Put that on your menu, folks.
But I mean, the thing is, like with French fries, where are you on camp French fry? Like, are you?
I like steak fries.
Like the big thick boys. Yeah. Okay. I also like my favorite is McDonald's fries. Yeah.
Because Wendy's is all right. Like, they're good, but if you just want pure like salt, like terrible for you, but it still just brings that sense of like happiness. McDonald's French fries is just a simple, cheap way to do it.
Yeah.
I enjoy Wendy's French fries, but if I'm needing my French fry solution to my life problems, McDonald's French fries.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Because also, like, I see like Wendy's thicker cut fries.
Yeah.
A lot of time, like, they're just soggy when you get them.
Yeah.
And they're like weak and want to fall apart. And I'm like, that doesn't make me happy.
Yeah.
I mean, occasionally they do them right, and it's like, all right, great. These are crispy all the way through.
They're not consistent enough.
Or the other one that's really good is Chick-fil-A's waffle fries.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, here in Fort Morgan, we don't have a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah,
so.
but the thing is also, they don't give you enough.
No, they don't. That's a letter we'll write to Chick-fil-A. Strongly worded letter. Give us more waffle fries, sir.
Yeah, make those containers bigger because, I mean, your waffle fries are already huge. So they're taking a bunch of space.
Right.
Maybe that's how they're making money off of them. You thinking about that?
I think you found the crux of the problem, sir. Yeah. You've discovered the Horcrux.
I mean,
Call Harry Potter.
The lines are already forming up always at every Chick-fil-A ever. So it's like, come on, just give us more waffle fries. You guys can afford it.
We'll go on GoFundMe and ask for it. It'll be great. All right, we're talking Star Trek today, so we'll be right back here in just a moment after the intro to talk about two movies. Both. Very interesting. So we'll be back in a sec here on Nerds by Screenlight.
Get nerdy with me. Talk nerdy to me. Get nerdy with me. All I really need for you to do is just please.
I can stop.
Talk to me. Talk nerdy to me.
All right, here we go. Back to Nerds by Screenlight. So,
go ahead.
No, what do you got, huh?
I'm just already thinking about this because, like, you're the Trekkie.
Trekkie. It's Trekkie. Thank you very much.
Trekkie, not Trekker.
Not Trekker.
Yeah.
No.
People make that mistake.
Well, and there are people who claim it's Trekker, and they're communists, so we don't talk to them.
Yeah, that makes, to me, it's too close to trucker.
I don't drive a truck.
So you can have, like, the name Hambone, like, as you're wearing your little uniform. On your CB radio.
No. I am a Trekkie. Thank you very much. Not a Trekker, not a Trekster.
Yeah, Trekkie. But I'm just thinking, it's like, before we start, it's like, I have a feeling this might end up being a two-parter.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot in both of these movies.
Yeah.
To unravel.
There is.
I mean, even the original one itself, I know that's a solid one episoder itself.
Yeah.
And then to see what they did to it in kind of like, well, they did a dirty thing and skidded around the reboot thing and kind of made it alternate timeline instead.
Right.
It's how they're spinning it.
Yeah.
That one has a lot to pull apart.
Yes, it does, and it's so. Here's the thing about Star Trek: The Motion Picture. That was what was before Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Is there was a Star Trek Phase 2.
Yeah,
and Star Trek Phase 2 was going to be the next part of the Kirk story.
Yeah, the new TV series.
Yeah, and they were going to have the Enterprise was going to be redesigned. It was going to be differently.
Yeah.
And they actually did shoot some footage of it, and they had some ideas for what Phase 2 was going to be. It didn't work out. It didn't get greenlit. It didn't happen.
Well, they rolled it into a movie because they saw. I think at the time frame was that you had like Star Wars dropped.
Yep.
And then Close Encounters a third time dropped.
Yep.
And so sci-fi was taking off, and they're like, we need to get on this bandwagon.
Yep.
We already have the IP to a sci-fi show.
Yep.
We've been working on a TV show. Now we weren't going to do it. Let's roll that into a movie.
Yeah. And so it became Star Trek: The Motion Picture. It is an interesting movie because so Star Trek 1 Motion Picture has its own storyline. It's self-contained.
Yeah.
The uniforms have changed.
Star Trek drastically.
The Enterprise is refit, and the bridge is designed differently, and things just look different in the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, way different. I mean, the thing is, like, time frame here, folks, that we need to remind you is, like, the original series was only 3 years long, 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And that was, the last one was 1969?
Something like
it's
that.
like 66, 69, something's when it ran. I'm really close to that time frame. This movie came out in 1979.
Yep.
So you're looking at like a 10-year gap.
Yep. And so you have Kirk returning back. You have all the crew coming back together.
Yeah.
But Kirk is not the captain. He is the admiral.
Yeah.
And Captain Decker, which here's an interesting thing. So in the original series, there was a character named Commodore Decker. And Commodore Decker was in charge of the starship that got eaten or got attacked by the space worm. So let me go back to that real quick.
Okay.
Because there actually is a connection. So Commodore Decker.
Well, I can also know is like in Phase 2, the characters that we see in the movie, the new ones, Ilya, Decker, and Zahn, who briefly gets to shake hands with Kirk, were originally supposed to be rolled into the new crew for Phase 2.
Right.
Especially like Zahn as the new Vulcan science officer.
Yep.
Because Nimoy was not on board with Phase 2.
Yeah.
Really. Because like they were only going to give Spock like 3 episodes out of like the 11.
Yeah.
And Nimoy was like, I'm not down with that.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
But then when they did the movie, they kind of like repitched it back to him. It was like, come on back.
Yeah.
Because Star Trek is not Star Trek without Spock in it.
Right. It wouldn't have gone anywhere.
And then they got him back, but they gave him, it's one of those tit for tat things. It was like, we'll let you have some control over the script.
Yep.
And then he was like, okay.
Yeah. And Nimoy is complicated. Obviously, his story is interesting unto itself. Anyway, so Commodore Matt Decker was in the original series. It was this episode, The Doomsday Machine. And so Decker was the Commodore, was promoted to Commodore and assumed command of the USS Constellation. So he was on a routine survey mission. He encountered an alien planet killer systematically destroying the planets. During the encounter, Decker's ship became hopelessly damaged, rendering all power plants dead. Decker remained on board to confront the machine, leading his entire crew to what he believed was the safety on L374 Third, the third planet of the L374 system. When the alien machine destroyed the planet and further damaged the constellation, Decker was the only survivor.
Ugh.
Decker was later discovered by the USS Enterprise, which transported him aboard from his broken ship. He initially resisted the effort to do so, stating he never lost a command before. Consumed with grief and with an almost reckless desire for revenge, he seized command of the Enterprise after losing contact with the Constellation, leaving Captain Kirk aboard the Constellation. Decker then launched an attack on the planet killer in an attempt to stop it from reaching the most densely populated sector of our galaxy. His attack turned out to be a futile move, which resulted in severe damage to the Enterprise. Captain Kirk gave Commander Spock a direct order to relieve Decker. On Kirk's personal authority, Decker submitted to Spock's relieving him of the command. After being threatened with arrest, Decker subsequently stole the Enterprise shuttlecraft Einstein, piloting it into the maw of the machine in a suicide attack. Decker was killed in the attempt. While the attack failed to cause significant damage, the planet killer had lost a small amount of power. It did demonstrate to the Enterprise how to disable the machine. So Kirk drove the Constellation into the maw of the planet killer, which died when it was unable to handle the energy released by the Constellation's exploding impulse engines. Following the battle, Kirk noted in his log that Decker had given his life in the line of duty. So
now, was the Captain Decker we saw like his son or something?
So here's the deal.
Okay.
Apocryphal. Decker's first name is Brand, and that's in the adaptation, the book adaptation of it. What is said here? I'm looking down here for a second. Decker's first meeting, Decker's universe, the alternate reality. There is some suggestion that Captain Decker is related to Commodore Decker.
Okay.
So there is that. And I got to find this related to Captain Decker. There is that. In official Star Trek website, it also supports the idea as it clearly states that Captain Decker is the son of Commodore Mac Decker.
Oh, there we go.
For the entry, Will Decker in the Star Trek Encyclopedia, he's identified as the son of Matt Decker. So that is a part of this story.
Yeah, because I mean, you get that thing where he actually mentions, hey, Kirk, you supported me to get this role.
Right.
And then you're kicking me out of it.
Yep.
But it's like, okay, so maybe Kirk was like, hey, because of Decker from when they met or whatever.
There is tension there that isn't really, it's addressed, but it's also not addressed. And so Captain Decker is the son of Commodore Mac Decker, which explains in a little bit more of why Kirk and him are at times
butting heads,
but at other times they figure out how to work together.
Yeah,
they do kind of find a way to let go of their anger and their frustration with each other. So that's the part of the story that is important to note. That Captain Decker obviously is related to Matt Decker.
Okay.
He goes out in a similar fashion in the end, which is also kind of heartbreaking when you think about it. Both men died in sacrifice to a gigantic space being.
Yeah, some other being.
So that's kind of the thing there. On the other side of things is Star Trek 2009, which.
Where do you want to start with that giant thing?
I don't know. Let's talk about the good.
Okay.
Before we get to the bad.
We're good.
Let's talk about the good. Let's talk about the motion picture. Now, here's the thing about the motion picture. Okay. It is unusually long and drawn out.
Oh yes.
The scenes with the Enterprise in the beginning are just it's too much. It is absolutely like you are trying to really look at the prettiness. Look at the prettiness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because all new, it's their new flagship.
Right. Well, they're also trying to replicate the kind of the shock and awe of the Star Wars world, and look at this cool stuff. And so I get it why they did it. It unfortunately.
Did you see the bad little black spots that were on the camera?
Yeah.
Kind of like as they're panning around the pure white of the Enterprise, you see these black blobs. And it's kind of like that's an accident.
Yeah.
That they're doing because they're shooting from the models, and the camera had some stuff on it. Yeah. And it's kind of like, you guys.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and it's interesting because it works in some parts. Huh. But it does go on for a long time. It's the cool thing about this movie is the music is legit.
Oh yeah.
Like the music from the Klingon scene or the dun 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 dun.
Oh yeah.
Like that is just you just go, okay, this is the thing. Jerry Goldsmith did the music for this. He's a long time Star Trek guy. He is a legend in the soundtrack world. His Star Trek theme.
Yes, I was going to say, just listen to the themes he created for Star Trek. Yeah. They are amazing. Yep. And those flying horns that he puts in just makes you it lifts your spirit to hear his songs, those themes. He
was a masterful Star Trek composer. Let's see here. So the way that this movie is pacing, after we do all the dramatic, woo, look at the prettiness, we do start to pick up our speed.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. But the cool thing about it is we get these moments where the movie slows us down enough to have character moments.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's audience at home, this movie, I'll tell you, most people just call it the boring one. And it's because of the pacing is so slow.
It's 2 hours and 16 minutes.
Yeah, and it's so slow, and they waste a lot of time on shots of things where it's we don't need this anymore. Yeah. Move.
Get done with this movie.
But it's as you said, it's it's still slow enough though where you get to have these moments with these characters as they kind of rehash who they were.
Right.
Well, I mean, you get it with the main three.
Yeah.
Which is Bones, Kirk,
and
Spock.
Yep.
You don't so much get it with anybody else on the crew, which is kind of a letdown.
Right.
Considering how long it is and the time they have this movie.
Well, I think if they had cut all the glory shots of the Enterprise, they would have allowed more time between Uhura and Chekhov and Sulu to have
exactly.
kind
They
of those
should
moments.
have, but it's like, especially because like this was like them trying to reboot Star Trek in a way and get it more interest out there.
Yeah.
And it's like you had a whole cast of these interesting characters that had their own personalities in the show.
Yeah.
And this movie is kind of like, well, you're only having the 3 main boys do stuff. It's kind of like, come on, guys.
But you have to give credit between Spock, Bones, and Kirk. The way those guys go up against each other in this film, and the way they literally chew the scenery apart. When they're together, because the beauty of Star Trek: The Motion Picture is you have, the 5-year mission, and you have all that past episodic interactions to understand how much they care for each other and how much relationships they have, like how connected these men are. And you get it because they come back together. And Kirk pulls McCoy out of retirement.
I love when he shows up from the transporter room wearing that 70s like zoot suit with a gold medallion.
He's got the full-on beard and everything. And he's like, they pulled me out. They drafted me. And Kirk says, it wasn't her. And he's like, you did this. You did this. Bones, I need you. And he says, Bones, I need you. He says, Bones, I need you. And the understanding there is that he trusts McCoy as a doctor.
Yeah.
But there's also that element that he trusts him as a friend.
Yes.
And to keep him honest. He knows that he can't do this without McCoy because McCoy is almost his conscience.
Yeah, like that's one of I love the working dynamic of the 3 of them, where it's kind of like, I always looked at it as like Spock is, here's logic.
Yeah.
With a little bit of emotion sprinkled in there.
Yeah.
McCoy is kind of like the elderly father figure that represents intelligent emotion.
Yeah.
Tempered with logic.
Yeah.
And Kirk has always been our hotshot running around, whatever.
Yeah.
And he learns from the 2 of them.
Yeah.
And they kind of ping-pong him back and forth.
Yep.
And he always looks at McCoy. Bones is kind of, as you said, that's Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah.
And like Spock and Kirk become friends, but it's like McCoy's always kind of like the father figure between the 2 of them, because even Spock at times has talked to McCoy about stuff.
Yeah.
Because he's the elderly statesman of the 3 of them.
Yeah. Well, and
I love how grumpy he is with all of them. With even Spock, he's so grumpy, and it's kind of, I love you, Bones. You're great. And Carl Urban in the new reboot, I loved him as it too. I just wish he would have gotten more.
He does play McCoy well. That's one of the situations where Urban did study DeForest Kelley, and he understood the character of McCoy.
Yeah. Carl Urban always does his homework.
Yes.
He's a great actor.
He does. He knows what he's doing. I think what I love about this movie is there are moments where before Spock goes and mind melds with the thing.
Yeah.
Spock is he's distracted, and he is trying to hew so closely to the Kolinar.
Yeah, I was about to say he's trying, like, folks, like the Kolinar is a ritual where Vulcans go through
to remove emotion.
And become basically just like living things of logic.
Right.
And we see him at the beginning. He fails.
Well, no, he doesn't fail. He refuses it.
Yeah, he refuses it.
He says, I don't. And so she then goes, okay, I need to see, like, you failed the Kolinar. You must find your answers elsewhere.
Yeah.
You will not find your answers here. Part of the problem is, obviously, Spock is half human.
Yep.
And that's the other additional layer that I wish it would have. I know it as a Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
But it isn't really mentioned here in the movie about his human piece of him.
Yeah, a lot of people do not know that fact.
Yeah. Because Spock isn't. He is
half human.
Now
everybody assumes he's just pure
nope.
Vulcan. Like,
he is half. And that, I think, is a cool layer that we get further of him in the further movies. And this one, we get to see it because so after he does the mind meld and he gets flung back to the Enterprise and he's laying in the sickbay bed, you see him smile. And you see him go, Jim. Yeah. And up until that point, he has not called Kirk Jim.
Yeah.
That hasn't been a dynamic.
Oh, yeah, because he's been like the cold, logical man.
Yeah,
look at the way he treats everybody.
Yeah. He doesn't.
Even Uhura, where they used to have like a kind of like, she used to pick on him and drive him nuts in the show.
Yeah.
And in here, he just ignores her right off the bat.
Yeah. And and I like how that happens because as a viewer, as a watcher, you go, okay, this is not the Spock we know and love. Yeah. Something is happening. Something is having an effect on him. Okay, we need to watch what happens next. And so when he's finally in sickbay and he says, Jim, and he talks about what he found out and what he's discovered and all of these things. And I think for Kirk, it's like, okay, my friend's back.
Yeah, exactly.
He's returned. We're back on. We're good to go. We're going to be all right. We're going to figure this out.
Well, it's because, like, again, it's like, even then, like, after that moment, Spock actually starts, like, more recognizing the other crew.
Yeah.
Too. So it's not just Kirk. I mean, it's just like Kirk is the big one.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like whatever switch. Well, I guess since we're talking about it, we can just talk about it. V'ger just being this cold, logical machine is missing a giant part of it, which is what it's looking for.
Its creator.
Its creator, but also emotions.
Yeah.
Those types of attachments, which is it doesn't have, which is why it's trying.
Spock makes that point where he says V'ger, and he reaches out and he grasps Kirk's hand.
Yeah.
And he says, V'ger does not understand this.
Yes.
V'ger has no concept of this.
Yeah. That's why I think like that wakes Spock up from, whoa.
Yeah.
I almost became like the machine.
Right. Well, and he talks about he heard the meat machine calling to him.
Yeah.
He could hear it out there. And out on Vulcan, he is far away from this creature. But Spock, for whatever reason, was able to go, I hear it.
Yeah, that was one of the weirder things I didn't like because I'm like, where is this coming from? I've never really seen Spock do that before.
Right.
He's not a betazoid, which are telepaths.
Vulcans have sensitivities in that regard. So, but we also know that Spock is uniquely talented.
Yeah.
We know that Spock is a different kind of Vulcan sometimes. There are things that he's able to do and is able to hear and sense. I think the other thing is, I think that he may, as a human and a Vulcan together, because he represents much of the creator, that may be part of why, like, he's certainly affected.
Oh, yeah.
Because he has the creator's DNA in him, but he has that Vulcan logic. And so those combinations, maybe, again, it's a theory,
it's a theory.
allow him to be affected by this creation because he's maybe one of the very few that's able to sense it. Yeah. Now, obviously, they could have gone in and said, yes, there are people on Vulcan who are saying they're sensing something, or they don't really explain that, but they give Spock that credit, and I think it works. I accept it because I know of Spock's abilities and he's unique. Now,
well, I mean, it's also because like again, we can just tie it back to like he's kind of like the machine.
Yeah.
Where when he's the cold, logical man, he's about to like cut off all those emotions.
Right.
When it's kind of like the machine, V'ger.
Yeah.
Is missing all that, and then once you add it into the equation, that becomes like a higher being, a better being.
Right.
So it's like that's kind of what you get there too. So it's like maybe that's how they kind of play off of that too, is showing like Spock getting woken up like, no, your emotions are good for you, buddy.
Yeah.
Don't cut it out.
Yeah.
If you need to feel.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's something like that. I don't know. It was so weird.
I don't know. I accepted it, but I'm also like.
You're a Trekkie.
I'm a Trekkie, so
I think about it too as like fans.
Yeah.
Do we have fans?
I don't know.
I don't know. People are out there listening. People listening.
Yeah.
Like
Listeners.
some of you that have not been in touch with Star Trek, I think it's kind of like I'm just going to sidestep a little bit, kind of backtrack, but it's kind of like the people that make up the crew of the Starship Enterprise under Captain Kirk are all exceptionally talented in their fields.
Yes.
Like they are basically, it's like for whatever Kismet fate slapped them on that ship together.
Yeah.
They are all like legends in their fields. Like Mr. Scott is
and here's the reason why.
Yeah.
For the longest time, the Enterprise was the flagship.
Yeah.
And so you only wanted the best of the best of the best on that flagship. So the original Enterprise was the flagship of the fleet. And my suspicion is the new refit Enterprise, still the same NCC number.
Yeah.
It was the flight. And when Kirk says we're the only ship in range able to take care of this, like the Enterprise was the god ship.
Well, yeah. What I also think is like that's kind of goofy. When you
it is a little bit. That line does kind of irritate me because it's like you're at Earth. Earth should have all the starships around it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. We're also talking about a Star Trek where there's not a lot of ships because in the original series you had like the Constellation. You had maybe 7 to 10.
Yeah, Starfleet was baby sized.
It was small, and as you got farther into the Next Generation, it got bigger and bigger, and DS9 bigger, and Voyager bigger, and now it's even. But so in that day and age, I can accept it. I would have accepted that we are the only ship capable of addressing this with the crew that we have.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but it's so the reason why you're saying why it's so interesting, Kismet.
Yeah, I was just like, well, it's more like I wanted to explain it to them because a lot of people don't know, like your level, and even my level because I dipped my toes in just about everything nerdy.
Yeah.
Except for Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like Star Trek, the crew that we're seeing are all amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's even with Next Generation. The Starship Enterprise, the Next Generation, it was the flagship of the fleet.
Yeah.
So when you have a flagship, you want everybody at their best on that ship.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't explain Wesley Crusher, but that's beside the point.
The protege.
Yeah, that's true. That's possible. And he
That's
does
the role he filled.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, so the reason why Star Trek, by the Enterprise, you have all these people who are legit, like you have Sulu and Chekhov and all, like Uhura. They are the best of the best because the ship you wanted to serve on, the one ship that you wanted to find yourself onto was the Enterprise.
Yes.
Because the Enterprise was the legend.
Well, I mean, it's also because remember, it is the massive refit.
Yeah.
And it becomes that conflict between Decker and Kirk.
Yep.
Because Kirk doesn't know the systems of the ship as well anymore because it's been everything's all new.
Yeah.
This is how these things work, and
Yep.
Decker kind of schools him on that.
Yeah.
And
What's interesting is that though Kirk. So what I love about this is that there's a moment of conflict on the bridge, right,
Mhm.
where he's like, there's the warp situation goes south.
Oh, I didn't like that whole
I
sequence.
didn't like it either. I get
awkward.
it, but it's just like whatever. And so like Kirk pulls him, says, come with me to my office, please, or hey, meet me in my quarters.
Yeah.
And once the doors are closed, then he says, why did you contradict me? What's going on?
That's actually how a good leader should handle something.
And that's the note I made. I said, you know what? Kirk has come so far because in New Trek, like he would have just yelled at him, like, how dare you contradict me on the bridge?
Yeah, you see that all over 2000. 2009 is just like emotional or any kind of conflict is resolved by shouting at each other.
Right. In this, he says, and he what's funny is that he says, Commander Decker, could you meet me in my quarters, please? And Bones says, can I tag along? And Kirk just kind of nods because he knows that the reason why Bones is going is he wants to make sure everything's okay.
It's also, Bones is the guy that can, with just a couple words, put Kirk in his corner. Like,
also, he could probably put Decker in his place.
Yeah.
But he's also on the command team. So as a member of the command team of the Starship, he's
Chief Medical
Chief
Officer?
Medical Officer is his position. So he would have he would not have a reason. He would not be disallowed from attending that meeting if he said, I feel I need to be here to make sure things are okay.
he's the head of space HR.
Right. He is HR. He's the referee. So that meeting, I love it because Kirk, the way that William Shatner plays Kirk is, yes, it's overacted sometimes.
Well,
but the way that he plays it is he says, why did you contradict me? He doesn't yell at him. He says, explain this to me.
Yes.
Talk me through this. And I love, I guess you could call it old Trek or classic Trek or the real Trek, whatever. Like, I love it because that's what you do.
Yes.
And you love that because you're like, I have an adult in the room finally.
Exactly.
I've missed this. I've missed the adult in the room on Star Trek. And Kirk doesn't hold a lot against, like they spar throughout the movie. They go back and forth. But Kirk will he says, well, I will hope, he kind of cracks a joke. He says, I hope you'll be able to nursemaid me through this.
Yes.
And it's just like, Decker just kind of gives him that sly smile like, yes, sir, I will. He's like, thank you very much. And so he leaves, and then that's when McCoy says, are you sure? Like, he pushes him. He says, are you sure he's not wrong? Are you trying to relive glory?
That's where he drops the line where it's like, you aren't competing. You're competing with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. What I love about this is that Kirk doesn't solve the problem right away.
No.
That it's left to hold.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, we're going to figure this out in the next 3 minutes. Okay, we're good. Now we move on. It's no, this will hang over Kirk as he continues through this movie. And he has to decide, is he competing with himself or is he willing to eat his crow and join with Decker and the crew and be a part of a functional crew? What I appreciate a lot about this movie is that Kirk is thoughtful.
Yes.
He is actually like, as things are happening, as they're trapped, you see him sitting in that chair and he's thinking and he's going, what do you think? Hey, what do you think? What do you know? How can we get through this?
That was the original TV show, though.
Yeah,
like a lot of people kind of like lost it because they think like the characters became tropes.
Yeah.
And you kind of like forgot like, no, this is the way the character really was.
Yeah.
Well, Kirk was, yes, he is the action man, and he jumps to his first emotional things.
Yeah.
He still put a lot of thought into what he was doing.
Yep.
And he always relied on the people around him and their inputs to figure out problems.
Yeah.
Like, to talk about things. He's a leader.
Yes.
And, I mean, Picard does the same thing, but Picard isn't an action man. He leaves that more to
he's more
like Riker and
intellectual,
such.
thoughtful.
He's the more taking, like, those leadership qualities and putting it into the intellectual guy.
Mm-hmm.
which I love Next Generation because of all that stuff. But anyway, it's kind of like Kirk is a leader, an effective leader, and knows what he's doing. He knows how to talk to these people.
Yeah.
Like that, like we just said, it's like that whole scene in there. It's like they didn't yell at each other in front of everybody.
Yeah.
It's more like pulling them aside and being like,
yeah,
let's hash this out.
Yeah.
Or at least let's talk about it, touch on it.
Let's figure out
we
how to...
may not solve it.
Right.
But we're going to...
We got to work together.
Yes.
We have, because there's no way that like the two of us can't do this on our own. We can't have we can't have two cooks in the captain's kitchen.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
This is how adults are
grown-ups?
supposed to act. Grown-ups, yes. Grown-ups, this is because like adults and grown-ups, you can look at it as two different things.
Yeah.
Age will eventually put you into the adult category.
But grown-up is the whole
But being
key,
grown-up is a whole nother kettle of fish.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yes, this is how grown-ups should act.
Yeah.
This is what's like science fiction, what Roddenberry was trying to get at. Or it's like you need to have the very best of humanity and cultivate that and rise it to the top.
Yep. At the end of that meeting, I wrote McCoy speaks as a friend, but also as a crew. And his last line in that scene to Kirk is, "That depends on you."
Yeah.
And he walks out. And I made a note, imperfect beings, as imperfect as they are, they still try.
Yep.
But I love that door as it closes, and as it slides past the screen, it darkens. And so you get Kirk in kind of this darkened kind of almost study of reflection, but also realizing that McCoy might be right.
Yeah.
But it's not done in an overhanded way. It's like the tone and the emotion of the scene, they're showing us versus telling us.
Yes, exactly.
And a lot of this movie is a lot of showing and not telling, because you see the glances, you see the dynamics, you see the conversations, and the conversations aren't solved. Throughout the whole movie, I made notes about how conversations, they're exposition, but they're not like, oh, we've solved it, it's done.
Yeah.
It's no, this is unresolved.
Oh, you mean the modern day thing where it's kind of like we have one conversation, problem done.
Yeah, problem solved. So it, like, I love, because I made this note later on in the viewing. I said, we are right along with these characters, learning as we go.
Yes.
We don't know. Like, if it's our first viewing, we have no clue.
Yeah.
We're learning. Now we're interpreting and questioning and thinking and theorizing as we go.
Yeah.
But we're right there with them as they make discoveries, as they illuminate stuff.
Like the scene just outside of V'ger.
Yeah.
When they're starting to fly into it. And you get this is one of those things where they could have cut out some time.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a good 10-minute sequence of them flying into V'ger.
Yeah.
But still, there should have been some time there, because it did a good thing where it's like, look at the crew.
Yeah.
The camera does cut to the crew as they're moving through this giant energy cloud, which is beyond anything anybody has ever encountered, period.
Yeah.
I think even with all the newer shows and stuff that's come out, V'ger is still like one of the pinnacle strongest beings ever.
Yeah.
And so it's like they're flying through that crowd, and you skip around, you see the different faces of the crew, and they're just kind of terrified because everything's changing. All that weird energy patterns and stuff is flying all around them.
Yep.
And this is them seeing it for the first time.
Yep.
Us, we're right there with them seeing it all for the first time, and it's scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like you are now inside with this huge ship, because V'ger is monster size.
It's insane.
Like, not even like the energy cloud it gives off.
Yeah.
If you put V'ger as the sun, it would extend beyond Earth's orbit.
Yeah.
And the ship of V'ger is sitting inside of it, and it dwarfs the Enterprise.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like just the scale of that. Yeah. I mean, that's why I love those shots they do where they pull like kind of a distant away, and you see like the Enterprise is
ship.
like a speck.
Little ship. That is one thing. They do perspective well here.
Oh yeah.
And even like perspective, both it's both metaphorical, because the perspective of seeing the tiny Enterprise in V'ger and as it's journeying through, but you also see like the metaphor and the understanding that the Kirk and Spock, nobody has any answers.
Yeah, there's none here.
And so they're sitting, like, that's why when Kirk is just kind of sitting there going, and he's thinking and he's trying to figure it out, you go, they might not actually figure this out.
Yes.
Like, there's that possibility that we might not actually solve this. This is totally, we're not, this isn't the Klingons, this isn't the Romulans, this is outside of any of our experiences over the last 3.5 years or however long like the show ran. Like, we don't know what to do with this
yes.
as viewers, but watching the characters go,
Yeah, because
I
being
don't know.
clueless. Like,
Yeah.
what are we dealing
But they're
with?
not. But the clueless is followed by we have to figure this out.
Yes.
We are going to do everything we can to discover because Earth is now like 6 hours away, 3 hours away. We're within range. Like we have to find a solution, and so they're always trying. And I think there's probably a lot that we don't see because obviously 2.5 hours of a movie we can't see more. But I'm sure there's a lot more that. As an audience, we fill in the blanks of going. There is probably a lot of work going on in the science departments, in all kinds of departments within the ship, of people trying to figure out.
Yeah, I wish they would have given us more of that, but they.
Yeah, they didn't. But I think it's really cool because we get the sense that they no one knows, but they're trying to know.
Yeah.
And I love how Kirk is given the ability to think. Like he's given the ability to reason, but the reasoning happens with the crew. The other crew have ideas like Spock says this, and then Kirk goes, oh, well, this, and oh, it's a child. It's acting like a toddler.
Oh, yeah, I love that. It's like, well,
Yeah.
how do you got to spank the child?
Right.
It's kind of like, all right.
And then Kirk says, okay, well, we'll withdraw. And then they figure out we need to see V'ger. We need to go to V'ger.
Yeah.
And the fact that they get there through the logical and rational like discernment is beautiful because you're like, okay. And so then when they eventually do get to meet V'ger, there's a payoff. They've earned the discovery. And we as an audience are going, Voyager 6.
Yeah.
That's what it was all this time. And
yeah, I remember seeing it for the first time and being like, it's a NASA probe?
yeah. Yeah.
And being like, what?
Yeah. That's, I think, probably when people watch it for the first time, it kind of just shook them because it's like, whoa, because it's a connection to the modern times, right?
Yeah,
it's a connection to we know Voyager 6, we know these things, but it's also the future spin on it. Now,
yeah,
to take a small rubber trail off, there is apocryphal and mythological evidence to confirm or suggest that V'ger either encountered the Borg,
yeah,
or the Borg in their early whatevers created or helped the V'ger create their thing.
Yeah, like I was going to talk about this too, where it's kind of like, yeah, there's those type of things. They also think is like they say like maybe the same creator race created them both,
right?
And that's how you get the two of them.
Yeah. So there's ample evidence to suggest, because even there's a part of the movie where Spock doesn't say resistance is futile, but he says something along the lines of would be futile.
Yeah.
And so that. And even Roddenberry kind of made a half joke early on about the Borg possibility connecting there.
Yeah.
I think and I believe that they probably either encountered the race that created the Borg, or they ran into, or Voyager 6 somehow came to the Borg or encountered that piece of it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the whole Borg dig stuff to it thing.
Yeah.
Because because in my brain I'm like, well, then they would show up faster in the timeline than they did, instead of just being stumbled upon by Enterprise as it's just exploring unknown space.
Right. Well, the idea.
I'm more of a fan of the creator race of the Borg, the living machines or whatever.
Right. The planet of machines.
Yeah, the planet of machines. I think it kind of made them both.
Because the idea behind Voyager 6 is it goes beyond known space. It traveled way beyond and hit some wormholes and whatever.
Yeah, black hole took it way out.
Yeah. The thing about the Voyager 6 is it wouldn't have had a map to Earth.
Yeah.
So the Borg couldn't have been like, oh, we know now where Earth is. They would have been like, okay, well, there's this Earth and because there's no maps.
Well, no, I believe all the Voyager series, this is relying on brain that I haven't really read. All the Voyager series usually had a golden disc attached to it.
Yes.
With like the star map for the
Milky
solar
Way.
system, Milky Way.
Yeah.
Well, our solar system, where we're at, Earth, and everything else like that. So like that would be a map they could find.
But if they were far enough away, they'd have to make the connective tissues from there.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying right or wrong.
Because somehow V'ger does eventually find its way back.
Well, and that's because it has that awareness of where it's from, and it's able to create this massive vehicle.
Yeah, but I mean, the Borg could just right behind it.
So I think I would be more subscribing to the idea of that the race that created the Borg, they ran into them.
Yeah.
And the machine planet that created them from their home planet, that's what sent them on.
Oh, Borg, for all you
Yeah.
out there that aren't aware, Borg are, it's a race of like machines that kind of assimilate, it assimilates other races that it comes in contact with, other like fleshy beings. And you basically become part of a huge collective controlled by like a hive mind. And they have immensely advanced technology. compared to
Yeah.
other races, even Enterprise and everything else like that. They're basically like I think they're like energy weapon proof for at one point in time, where it's kind of like, yeah, you need war for this bat'leth, chopping them in half.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing that works. Yeah, they're hugely mentioned. They're a massive threat for a long time. And then in Voyager with Janeway is kind of where they kind of hinted like a weird like peace kind of thing with them.
Right.
After they were a massive threat for so long. I don't really understand what happened with that because I fell out of Voyager.
Yeah.
Because I found it insanely boring. But I mean, I know they were still telling good stories, but I just couldn't connect with anything. Because that was when I tried to step into Trek myself without my brother being the driving force. Because he was the one that dragged me into Star Trek. We talked about it in our very first episode.
Yeah.
And got me interested in Next Generation, which I respected and loved all that except for the movies.
Yeah.
But I tried to do Voyager by my own, and I'm just kind of like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to go watch Babylon 5 now.
Oh, okay.
Peace.
Well, and Babylon 5 is good. Voyager, it stumbled a bit in seasons 1 or 2, but overall it ended well. The series finale is picture perfect.
Okay.
They brought it to an end. It was brilliant. I loved it. It was not the Enterprise series finale where it was all a simulation with Riker and the counselor Troy in a holodeck, which was the dumbest ending in the world. People were mad.
Yeah, but yeah, just I wanted people to know what the Borg were.
Yeah.
So it's like that's one of the things. V'ger displays a level of power.
Yeah.
Even way beyond the Borg.
Yep.
And the Borg, believe me, they were bad.
Yep. Well, and they talk what the connective tissue is that the V'ger search for knowledge is connected to the Borg, and the Borg are looking to assimilate all the knowledge in the world, and you will become part of it. And resistance is futile, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, V'ger, it's interesting that I like that they took over Ilea. I think it's a cool little dynamic where they make her the probe, and it's the connection to Decker. Obviously, they had a relationship before, and we get a little bit of exploration of that.
Because like there's a bunch of hidden like background stuff about V'ger that I don't think they illustrated it in the show. In the movie, not the show, but in like the notes for the show where they're originally going to make V'ger do and highlight what V'ger did.
Yeah.
V'ger as it floated through space was just kind of like it did with Ilea. It's just kind of like zap something with its probe, pull it apart into all its like different pieces and assimilate it.
Yeah.
And its knowledge and make it turn it in, basically turning stuff into data.
Yeah.
And apparently they didn't put it in the show, but they were supposed to kind of hint at it. It was like it did this to planets, to galaxies, to suns.
Yep.
It was just pulling stuff apart and just assimilating all that knowledge and power.
But in a straightforward line.
Yeah, and like a giant steamroller across space.
It didn't like circle around a whole entire galaxy. It just literally, it's the path to Earth was the path that it consumed everything, and whatever was in its way got consumed.
Yeah, like those poor 3 Klingon ships.
Yeah. Which I think was funny because obviously the Klingons, the first thing they do is they shoot at it. They don't actually go, oh, what is this? That's just the Klingon way.
I mean, that's the highlight. They were the big bad guys of the original series. Yeah. Like Starfleet and Klingons were at war.
Yeah,
so
this beast is able to tame them and destroy them and consume them, as it were.
Because I think that's also another thing to highlight. A lot of people kind of misses like the original series and everything else was kind of like Starfleet was more on a war footing than being the explorers.
Yeah,
they were still exploring.
Yeah,
but they were more on war footing because basically you were dealing with the Klingons.
Right,
and that was a huge Cold War in space.
And Romulans and everything else.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that's kind of different. Like we get the more like kind of where Gene Roddenberry wanted to be in the Next Generation, where it's kind of like this is pure exploration. Yeah. We do have weapons, but they're not the main point of it anymore. It's kind of we're exploring the unknown. We're out here in the deep end.
Yeah. Well, I also like what we talked about this before in Star Trek is that the emotional conflict doesn't go away.
No.
And in this movie, it doesn't derail the plot, but it helps explain decisions and it helps explain characters.
Oh yeah.
And I love that it doesn't overwhelm the story, and it doesn't become a feature of the story.
Yeah. No.
That's the 5 o'clock bell.
Yeah, our class is out now.
Yep.
Everybody go home.
Yep, time to go home. So that's what I like about this part of Star Trek and the rest of the motion picture movies. I love how emotion is still there, but it's not a feature.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of those things like the main thing that V'ger was needing was that the emotion part,
Yep.
which Decker ended up giving it.
Yep. So that's the end of the movie is when and Decker, you can see it. He's starting to figure it out in that end scene.
Yeah.
Like he's watching Aaliyah, and he's going, someone needs to join with this. And obviously Decker's the odd man out because everyone else is the main character. So someone's got to give himself up.
Yeah.
And Decker says, you know what? I don't have a place here. As much as you wanted the Starship, as much as you wanted the Enterprise, this is what I want. I want to find the final frontier, the next thing.
I mean, I think they hinted at it too. Like we can wind it back. It's like when they have Decker and Aaliyah kind of bump into each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they got history there.
Yeah.
And you can tell that he loves her.
Yes.
But nothing's kind of returned really.
Right. Well, because he left her.
Yeah.
He left her, and he abandoned. And
well, they kind of resolved that too. He's like, well, if I would have come back and said goodbye,
right,
would anything would have been there? She's like, no.
Yeah. And that's I like that, but it's also interesting that Decker's able to break through V'ger's programming in one of the scenes where he's able to get Aaliyah to talk, and then V'ger takes back over, and so it's very interesting how that is played. I liked it. I liked how it worked. The ending with how they get joined and the effect that has and how it's played out and the shimmering and the shininess and
it becomes some sort of another being completely and then just disappears.
Yep, gone.
And it's kind of like, where'd it go? And I love that, at least as far as I know, no Star Trek series has ever tried to mess with that.
Yep.
Or tried to like bring back the V'ger being. And be like, nope.
Yeah,
that
gone.
being's just poof.
It's gone somewhere. A new life has been created and it's somewhere out there.
Yeah. Doing what?
Who knows? So yeah, no, I like that. I don't want to say I love this movie. I love how this movie works.
Oh yeah.
Because when we go to 2009,
I mean, because I'll even say it, I loved that movie.
Yeah.
Star Trek: The Motion Picture is a great movie.
Yeah.
It is boring. It is slow, but it is good.
Yeah. It's got really strong character moments. It's got great moments where you understand the crew is the crew.
Yes.
Like they have earned what they have. And now for the crew that has earned nothing.
And now we're about to step into the Kelvin timeline.
Kelvin, this is gonna be a long one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like this probably is a two-parter. Really.
I don't know. We'll see. I haven't watched this one in a while. You watched it more recently.
Yeah.
I haven't watched 2009 in a couple of years.
It was painful.
Out of the three, it's the strongest. Out of the three new Treks, it's the strongest. It's the one that I hate the least.
Yeah.
But that's a sliding scale for what J.J. Abrams has done to my Star Trek.
Like watching these two back to back though is so painful.
Oh yeah, because
and it's so painful.
You go from finely crafted chocolate, like 5-star Michelin star dessert to cake from a store.
Yeah.
And cake has been out for a couple of days and probably should have been put away.
Yeah.
So,
and it's so
yeah.
I'm like, all right, I went from like sci-fi
right
as it's
to Dawson's Creek in space.
Kind of meant to be, really. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
To all of a sudden it's like this is just a action movie with like teenagers screaming at each other.
It's Dawson's Creek Die Hard.
Yeah. Oh, with lens flare.
Yeah. Yeah, I all right. So the reason why it's called the Kelvin universe is because the USS Kelvin, a Federation starship investigating a lightning storm in deep space when the crew realizes there's a black hole, a massive Romulan vessel, the Narada, emerges, creating an alternate timeline. This is how this movie gets away with it.
Yeah.
This is what Abomination works. Now, guess who the first officer of the Narada is? George Kirk, the father of James T. Kirk.
Oh, not the Narada, the Kelvin.
Kelvin, sorry, the captain of the Kelvin, but he's the first officer.
Yeah.
So Captain Robot agrees to go over to the ship to investigate what's going on. Obviously, Eric Bana, who plays Nero, kills him.
Because at least in this moment, it's kind of like, in the rest of this movie, like Nero is just shown as just kind of like a weirdo psychopath.
Yeah.
In this moment, it's kind of like, what happened? Where are we?
Right.
I need information.
Right.
There's a Starfleet vessel.
Yeah.
Which I'm angry at right now. They don't explain that yet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shoot him up a little bit and then just be like, hey, talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
which I mean, knowing Starfleet as it was, he didn't even need to shoot. He could have just been like, hey, talk to me.
Right.
And Starfleet would have been like, all right, we're talking.
Right. Yeah.
The prime directive doesn't change.
Yeah. So anyway, then George Kirk takes command of the starship.
While everybody's evacuating.
Yep. He orders his wife who's pregnant with James T. So Kirk tries to plot a collision course, but his autopilot is offline. Of course it is.
Yep.
So he'll need to control the Kelvin himself. He orders his wife to leave on the shuttle. She protests, but Kirk knows he has no choice. And so George Kirk, the hero now, which he never was. I don't know if he was a hero the original James T. Kirk's time. I don't think they ever really talked about.
Well, I always thought that in the original timeline, Tiberius Kirk was his dad. And instead that being like, then this Kelvin timeline, Tiberius is the grandfather?
Dad.
Because they make that corny joke about Tiberius? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, no.
George Kirk was the... Okay, so George was the husband... Okay, George Kirk, Memory Alpha. Let's do our thing here.
Yeah. Go down the
for
rabbit
alternate
hole.
reality, George Kirk, alternate reality. Human Starfleet officer. George was the husband of Winona Kirk. So in the original series where No Man Has Gone Before, they do talk about him as George Kirk. He was a human Starfleet officer. His father was Tiberius Kirk. George was the husband of Winona Kirk and the father of James T. Kirk and George Samuel Kirk, which was Kirk's brother.
So I was wrong there. It's just more along those because I didn't know Kirk's parenting past.
Yeah. But
I knew the name Tiberius was the name because that's how he gets James T. Kirk.
Yeah.
It ends up being his middle name.
He exists in the regular timeline, and he also exists more explained in the Kelvin timeline. Anyway, so George Kirk then says, I love you. I'm going to go sacrifice. And he hears this cry of his son, gives him a name, and it's overplayed.
Yes,
it is too much.
Like this is your first 10 minutes of this movie. It's kind of like we're gonna ramp it and throw as much emotional garbage at you at one time.
There's no way that communication channel stays open for that long, and there's no way that ship stays alive for that long for him to be able to hear.
As long as it was, because look at what they were doing with just basic weapons from a mining craft.
Yeah, I think if they had taken that out, if she had been only able to see him, and say, George, can you hear me? And the channel goes,
yeah,
and she says, I love you, Kirk. I love you, George Kirk. Thank you for saving us. As they're fleeing away, and she watches it, and then she goes into labor, and they're escaping, and she gives birth, and then the nurse will say, what do you want to name him? And she says, oh, James, because of this. That would have made more sense than this whole long drawn out. And here's the thing. It's filming by coincidence. It's movie by coincidence. And it also could be called paint by numbers.
Yes. It's also one of those things for whatever reason, Abrams and his writing crew decided to take any little thing that existed in the characters as we know and just crank it to 12, not even to 11. Let's just crank it past that.
They went to lens flare.
Yeah.
They went from 11 into lens flare.
No, they went to plaid.
We've gone plaid.
It's like everything that was Kirk, and a lot of people know him as the tropey stuff. It's like, no, we're gonna crank that to plaid.
Good old Spaceballs.
Same
reference.
with Bones, and same with Spock.
Yeah.
Every the explosions, crank it.
Yeah.
Crank it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, no.
So it's
and it's like it's obvious from this opening 10 minutes where it's kind of like, all right, what was that?
Yeah.
It's someone that's Star Trek and everything else, kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
This is not Star Trek. It's wearing Star Trek's clothing.
Yeah.
But this is not Star Trek. What kind of imposter is this?
Right. So then we get 10 years later, we've got James T. Kirk playing the song "Sabotage" from the Beastie Boys,
driving the car,
the antique Corvette, of course. The boy defiantly says, "My name is James Tiberius Kirk." I don't need that.
No,
you are telling me more than you are showing me.
Yep.
I don't need you know what you could do. So 10 years later, you could have the shot of a police station in wherever they live in Iowa.
Yep.
And you could have his mother being like, "Where is my son?"
Bailing him out of prison.
Like,
yeah.
"Where is my son, ma'am? Your 10-year-old son took a joyride. What car did he get? I think you know the car, ma'am. He did that little whatever, yada yada." And like having him like sit in the chair, and as the audio fades out, like him sitting there just being obstinate and angry and angsty. I get more from that than from actually seeing him do it.
Well, even how young he is. I'm like, he's like a 10-year-old, and he's acting like more like a teenager.
Yeah. Again, it's Dawson's Creek Star Trek.
Yeah, and it's like, it's so off the wall where it's like, all right, you're trying to show him that he's like, all right, he's a rebel.
Yeah.
By just like slamming us in the face with it in a super electrified manner.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, juice it up. Make this character into like this. Like I said, they went to plaid with him.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, this is insane.
So here's what they do to us is they give us the characters' backstories. So they give us Kirk.
Yep.
Then they give us Spock, and he's getting made fun of by these boys. And
I'm sorry, like the Vulcan bully sequence. I'm like, this is not Vulcan at all.
No, it's not.
You wouldn't have Vulcan bullies just hanging around doing that.
Right. It's inconsistent.
Yep.
And I get people are like, well, it's the Kelvin timeline that the puddles and the waves from the Kelvin being destroyed and the arrival of Eric Bana's guy, like it affects. Like, no, shut up and sit down. Get your Star Trek like books out. And let's figure this out.
Yeah, there's so much canon stuff just sitting around.
Right.
That would tell you like this isn't the way things are.
Yeah, this is not how it works. So then we get the forward to when Zachary Quinto's conflicted about whether he should participate in the Kolinar.
Yeah.
Winona Ryder is his mother.
That actually was like a surprise little thing to me. It's like, hey, she's back.
And she
hadn't taken a role in a long time.
And I think it worked. I think her as the human mother works. I like that. I don't see the reason to front load all this.
No.
I just don't. Like,
no.
I don't want to I mean, this movie's going to get beat up, but like, I guess it's dumb. You don't trust your audience.
No.
You don't trust your audience to go, oh, he's Spock and he's half human. Okay, moving on. No, you got to show us. You got to tell us that he's being beat up and he's being mistreated and they're calling his mom names, and then he flips out and starts punching. Like, no. Give me my Star Trek. Yep. Let's get some Trek action. Let's get some actual storyline. Instead, you've blown up a ship. You've like thrown a car off a cliff or whatever. You've done some stupid stuff with Vulcan, and now you're doing the Kolinar. Why?
Yeah.
Why Trek? This is my favorite of the three, if you can believe it.
Right?
Okay, so, and then of course, my scene that I just want to blow it up. So, a late night bar in Iowa, a young Nyota Uhura meets up with some friends. They order drinks. Guess who's there? James T. Kirk. Someone inebriated. His first. Just no.
Yeah, that doesn't need to be here.
No, none of this. Okay.
Like Starfleet and everything revolving around it is in the Star Trek universe. It comes out of San Francisco, around California. Right. That's where kind of like the major thing is going on.
Yeah.
Why are we in Iowa doing this?
I don't know. These are questions I don't have answers for. So then he gets into a fight, and then he gets to talk to Captain Christopher Pike, who is Bruce Greenwood.
I actually liked Pike.
I like Pike in this movie. I like his he's the only real grown adult in the room.
Yep.
Where he's just like, your father died for you. What are you doing with your life? Get out and move. Kirk does not want to hear it and doesn't want to join the Starfleet command. Pike reminds him that his father saved 800 lives in just 12 minutes of command and challenges Kirk to do better. I love that line.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about Kirk. This iteration of Kirk doesn't learn a damn thing.
No.
Ever. Nope. In all three movies, it's always just a reset back to the old Kirk.
Yep.
And the beauty of the motion picture is that that's the Kirk who learned.
Mm-hmm.
He learned that his ways that he needed to get better.
Yes.
You don't just get to be an admiral because they put you into an admiral position.
Yeah, they just made him a shallow idiot man.
Right.
That somehow becomes a captain in Starfleet, which if you had this emotionally unstable type of person, be like, no.
Yeah.
You're never touching a ship. Ever.
Yeah. I do like the interaction between McCoy and Kirk.
Yeah.
Like that's there's moments of brightness.
I mean, I didn't like how they made like Bones just kind of like tell you everything like that. But I love Carl Urban as Bones.
Yeah.
Did a great Bones.
Yeah.
Like that's Bones. That's great. He's so grumpy and curmudgeon-y. I'm like, that's a brilliant character. He captured it. I'm sad that after this moment they kind of shove him to the side and made him like a prop for Kirk's idiocy.
Right. And then we get 3 years later, and the Narada is still somewhere.
You're missing another point that kind of drove me bananas.
Okay, talk to me about what drove you bananas.
Why are they building the Enterprise
on Earth
planet?
I don't know.
Just so we can get some dumb scene where Kirk is sitting on his motorcycle to stare at
the
it.
Enterprise.
And it's kind of like the Star Trek ships don't go into atmosphere. They have shuttles for that.
It's a cool visual though.
I mean, it's like you're flushing stuff down the pooper for cool visuals. This sucks.
I know.
It drove me bananas. Even when the first time I saw it, it drove me bananas. I'm like, no. You build this in space dock.
Yeah, that's how ships get built. That's how Star Trek has always done it.
That's always done it in Star Trek forever and an age.
Yeah, I know.
You don't build it in the middle of a cornfield in Iowa.
But it looks cool, don't you know? Ugh. And it creates that moment where he rides his bike and he looks at the ship and it's like, ooh.
That's my destiny. Even though I'm an idiot thug man. That should never even get to touch this thing.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it's... Okay, so the Narada is still around 3 years later. More than 3 years later.
Yeah, it's like 25 years. Yeah. Because the Kirk has time to grow up.
Yeah, so Narada's been kicking around for 25, plus...
Apparently, they in other media, comics and the books or whatever, they tell you what the Narada was doing. Instead of just, not doing a whole lot of nothing.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, in the Kelvin timeline, the Narada even bumped in the V'ger at one point.
Where's a desk that I can put my head through? God bless America.
And the Narada itself somehow integrates Borg technologies. That's how it heals itself.
What?
Yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff that's not canon. It's not canon, but it's out there, and you can read on. I didn't touch on it too deeply because I was afraid of going down those rabbit holes. Because I was like, this is really bad.
Okay, so 3 years later, the Narada is waiting in a remote part of space, having lost part of his right ear.
That's how they know where Spock is, kind of like what time and exactly when Spock is going to pop out. Apparently, it's because of its bump in with V'ger and all that other kind of stuff. Yeah, ain't that something special?
That's the word.
Because the giant coincidence that happened in the movie was kind of like, what? They know the exact placing, exact time, everything to be like, hey, old Spock, what's up?
Recognizes the ship, welcomes the appearance of Ambassador Spock, and he orders the ship to be captured. Meanwhile, at Tarfleet Academy, he's taking the Kobayashi Maru test and certainly will pass his time.
The Kobayashi Maru.
Okay, this makes me angry because there is no reason that he is that cavalier about it.
Yeah, no.
I will get really angry about this.
No,
because
you're allowed to get angry. It made me create nuts too.
This Kirk is not the Kirk anywhere close to Kirk.
Yeah.
This is a jerk Kirk.
Yes.
I don't like him.
Yeah.
And he's eating an apple, which of course makes him look like more of a jerk.
Yep.
And it's like he's glorifying. He knows he's cheating.
Yeah.
He's knowingly giving off the cheating vibe.
Yep. Like he's normally being like that smart aleck. I had to stop myself.
Yes.
Smart aleck person that's kind of like blatantly in front of everybody.
Right.
I know what's going to happen.
I'm telegraphing what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it's kind of like you wouldn't do that. Because now you're basically like when they haul him in front of like the board to punish him later.
Right.
Well, a couple scenes later, it's kind of like he deserves it.
Right. Well, and what's interesting,
and like the Kobayashi Maru in this universe is so wrong from what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to explain it? Okay.
Go ahead.
Kobayashi Maru is a simulation that they run in Starfleet.
Yeah.
And they put every captain, anybody that's going to be a captain, through this simulation with their crew or other new crews that are going to take off into space. And it is a no-win scenario.
Yep.
And it's set up this way because the captain can play it out in numerous different ways.
Yep.
And it is set up this way to test the character of that captain and see how they react and what they do. Yep. The Kobayashi Maru is a ship, like in the old school Trek universe, it's in the neutral zone. Well, it crosses in the neutral zone, and it's on fire and it's asking for help. You show up in your ship, and as you talk to the Kobayashi Maru, 3 Klingon birds of prey appear. Yeah. And they're armed and they're ready to fight.
Yeah.
That's your situation.
Yeah.
And at that time frame, like there's even in the flagship of Starfleet, you do not beat 3 Klingon birds of prey. You just lose.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, what do you do? Yeah. That's what it's set up to do. It is to test the character of the captain and those crew members that are running that simulation.
Yep.
And they run it super intensely. It is not a joke.
No.
Because even in the Next Generation stuff, where like Picard and stuff talks about it with Wesley and some others, it's like they take it mega seriously. Yeah.
Well, it's in the Undiscovered Country. We see the Kobayashi Maru played out on the bridge of a simulator, and it is serious. Like they have explosions and the Carrot and like McCoy and all of they play dead. Yep. And it's to help captains understand the weight of command. Yep. That there will be no win scenarios, and the way that it's talked about in, I think it's Star Trek 3. Is it 3 or is it 2? Wrath of Khan? I think it might be Wrath of Khan.
I think it's Wrath of Khan. Or
Genesis. I think it might be. That might be Star Trek 3. Search for Spock. Whichever one it's at. But he says, "How did you win that?" He said, "I cheated." Yeah. And then someone says, "Yeah, he reprogrammed." Whatever.
That's how they kind of.
But here's the thing: is that my guess is, and it doesn't. It's never really discussed beyond that in the original movies. My guess is what happened is he cheated. They said, okay, you cheated. You now have to rerun the scenario. Yeah. Like, and he would have had to go rerun the scenario without the cheating, and it would have been like that would have been the end of it. Yep. But the way that this is played out,
like they just kind of like throwing out this really important word that you know is going to get a bunch of Trekkies to be like, oh, yeah, Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah, we get to see it now in the Kelvin universe.
And wow.
I hate that whole scene.
Because even Uhura, who isn't in on the gag, just because she's upset with Kirk trying to pick her up, is like eye roll and sarcastic the whole time.
Well, and this movie reveals that Spock's involved in the evaluation.
Yeah, he created it or whatever.
What?
Yeah, it's like, what?
No. More of.
Yeah, the only one that's in that simulation that seems to be taking it at all seriously is Bones. Yeah. Because even the guy that's like programming the torpedoes and such is kind of like gets a smirk and a laugh on his face to Kirk's antics while Bones is upset. Yeah. And I'm kind of like, all right, if I was like Starfleet guy looking in at it, I'm like, all right, that guy's good. The rest of you that are in there, I know. Yeah.
I also like, so the inquiry happens and there's a whole bunch of accusations. I really hate all of this. And then
that's their version of discussion, which is let's just yell at each other.
I have forgotten how bad this movie is. Like, I know that I say it's my favorite of the 3.
Well, again, it's a scale of things. Like we have to do when I say it's like I don't like this, but it's like there's levels of me not liking it.
Well, and I think part of it is I watched the motion picture again today. Yeah. Like you walked in when I was finishing it up, and when I went from that, when you go from like award-winning chocolate cake to store-bought cake that's been 3 days old. It's so bad. Like it's like I don't need. Continuing on. So of course now there's an attack on Vulcan. And so now they're going to say, nope, charges are dismissed. Well, not really dismissed, but we're going to put the cadet crew on the Enterprise because the entire fleet is engaged in the Laurentian system.
For some reason.
The entire fleet?
Yeah, but then like in the next scene, they show like 20 ships. Remember that. They take off from planet. At least they did it right in this movie and showed there's actually ships around Earth in space docks.
So Kirk has been grounded, but then McCoy gets him to gets him to medical bay and injects him with a vaccine, and that whole scene is played for laughs.
I hate it. Like I said, it's like this is other than that meeting point with Bones, we don't get a proper Bones sequence. We get Bones as a prop to Kirk acting like a nut job. Like anybody looking at Kirk at this time is like, this guy's insane. Why would I listen to him?
Yeah. So
and Uhura, for some reason, being the communication officer, isn't on the command deck.
Yeah.
She's down in the like a weird engineering room. I did not like the look of a lot of like the. I mean, I know they're going for kind of like realistic-y kind of look at things, but like all that industrial stuff, like a water plant and whatever they did in this movie,
no.
I didn't like it.
Well, and the idea is that Uhura is not the main person on the bridge.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah,
and
she's not
so
yet.
like, but this is what makes me frustrated about this movie and about what they did with Kelvin, is they tried to reset the universe, which I get why they did it. But the problem is you're telling us a story we already know.
Yep.
I know that Uhura is an expert in linguistics.
Yep.
I know she's talented. I know Bones is like, don't give us this whole proving yourselves. Like, I don't need that. I need to like,
or don't have the characters go on like a 5-minute rant telling us this.
Yes.
We don't need that.
Yeah.
A lot of these people, like outside of us Trekkers, like out of Trekkies. Sorry. Trekkies outside of that crew.
Yeah.
Even sideline nerds, like I knew aware of it, and even people that aren't nerds are aware of these characters already because it became such a like a groundswell science fiction thing in its own right.
Yeah.
People know who Kirk is.
Yep.
We don't need it illustrate. People know who Spock is.
So So then there's the lightning storm, and Kirk realizes 25 years ago there was a lightning storm with my dad's ship. That's what's happening here. I need to go tell the captain.
Which space is full of weird anomalies and stuff where it's kind of like this could have been anything. Like this movie relies so much on just like
coincidence.
Yes, that is. It made me want to puke.
Yeah. I wish I could like this movie more, but it's
coincidence.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
a lot of stuff that just doesn't make sense because. I mean, with the original series, they did a lot of stuff where it's kind of like when they did Star Trek, they did a lot of stuff where they made it kind of like science possible.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't like some sort of fantastic thing where it's like this just magically worked like this, or this is the way it was. Like the example of like Vulcan with that ice planet that's right next to it. Well, Vulcan is like a desert planet. That ice planet is in like similar orbit that's close enough that you can see Vulcan. Like, no, that ice planet instead would be another desert planet or similar to Earth in makeup, not ice planet.
Right.
Especially to see it that clearly, to watch, the planet gets sucked in like that. It's like, okay. Like, in the original Trek, Roddenberry and stuff wouldn't even let that happen.
Yeah.
They would have been like, scientifically, how would that planet been look like?
Yeah.
And so it's like it threw a bunch of that stuff out the window. Like black holes were serious stuff. Is a serious thing.
Yeah.
Not something that you can just easily just escape from.
Yep.
Even in the next generation and stuff where they develop like way crazier technology, black holes are not things you play around with.
Right.
You try to get away from singularities.
Yep.
And it's like knowing that you're going to throw that giant red ball of goo that makes black holes when a droplet creates a black hole strong enough to devour a planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're immediately running away.
Yeah.
You're not standing there to have your moment in front of your screen to go like, just pump a few rounds into the guy that's already dead.
Yep. So on the line of coincidences, here we go again.
Oh, it's so painful.
Sulu is replacing Ensign McKenna, who is sick.
Yep.
Chekhov is in the he's doing his thing, and then Uhura, who apparently
which they made Chekhov like this international crew of mixed people, which are supposed to represent hope for the planet Earth of joining together, and moving together, and respect for each other's cultures and all this. They made his accent into a running gag. Yeah. And I was kind of like,
that's offensive.
That is massively offensive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
like all the good like the higher level, like this is what we should aim for.
Yeah,
like I said, that cream of the crop of like the best of humanity, and we need to make it grow.
Yeah,
you just took all of that and threw it down the trash chute.
Yep. So Uhura earns her position because Communication Officer Hawkins can't distinguish Romulan from Vulcan.
But
I don't get that.
You're like to even get that position, you need to be a linguistics expert.
Yeah, like how did you get on the Enterprise and you didn't know that? Like, I get what they're trying to say, that Uhura is good at her job.
Yeah,
but
I mean, this is like the as we saw in the original series, as the characters grew and we got exposed to them, it's like these people are all super exceptional.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like in this series, it's kind of like for some reason they're not recognizing the exceptional.
Well, the reason why is because all the starships are in the Laurentian system, except for the 7 that are going to Vulcan.
Yeah, whatever.
Which is just like, what the heck?
And did they, like, I don't remember them actually saying what they were doing in the Laurentian system.
Didn't.
Were they slugging it out with some Klingons or something?
They're making a trade deal with the Ferengi.
I don't know. They needed some gold plus
I don't know. I literally have no further care about this. Like, I don't even care. I should care more, but I don't. So the warp drive fails with Sulu's first push.
Oh yeah. Well, no. Remember, it's like, I hated this moment because I'm like, this is like, did you remove the parking brake? And then Spock goes ahead and says, did you remove the forward inertial damper? Which is basically just a scientific way of saying brake.
Parking brakes. And also, oh my God.
But I like, the thing is, this moment, I kind of liked it.
Okay.
Because it's like, I liked how it's like shows kind of Pike being okay and understanding his younger crew.
Right.
Where it's kind of like, well, you made a mistake, whatever. But they slugged it home in just such a bad way. Yeah. Because it's like Pike just being like, did you remove the parking brake? That's all that needed to be. Yeah. And then Sulu should fix it, go. Instead, it's like, no, did you remove the forward inertial damper? It's just like the scientific way of saying brake. And yeah.
So the thing that makes me cranky here is instead of our guys and gals and officers and whatever's getting onto the Enterprise and showing how good they are.
Yeah.
We have to get, this guy's sick. Not because Sulu's the best.
Yeah.
Because the dude's sick.
Yep.
What? And then the whole issue with the language, it's like, there's no reason why the office, like, no.
Yeah.
Give Uhura something, like, don't make it this, like.
Well, I mean, they did kind of sideline Uhura the whole movie. It's kind of, what they did to her was bad.
I agree. I love Uhura as a character, and anyway. So the parking brake is taken off, and so they're late.
Yes.
And everyone's dead.
Yep. Like they fly into a shield, like a whole sea of debris.
And so then Pike is able to help Sulu navigate, and then they get attacked, but Neo recognizes the Enterprise and orders a stop to the attack.
Which, I mean, how easily he just annihilated everybody in that small chunk of time. Like, the Enterprise should have just been trashed right off the bat. So it's like, I like that it's like, okay, he recognized, like, seeing on the screen, be like, oh, it's the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then he pulls his punches because he's like, ha 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 ha. Yeah. I'm getting a twofer here.
Yeah. So he asks who has combat or orders and then hand-to-hand combat trained officers. Sulu volunteers. Pike gathers Sulu, Spock, and Kirk and heads for the shuttle bay.
Well, he gets... Yeah,
and then he promotes Spock to captain.
Yep. He also promotes Kirk in the same breath, like to
first officer.
Yeah.
From a cadet to first officer in 30 seconds.
Well, the guy that was in academic probation too. But remember, for some reason, Pike sees like the silver lining in Kirk. Whatever.
So then we get on the Narada, and there's like a seismic disturbance, and there's a drill, and transporter beams, and there's fighting, and there's things.
And oh man, like they load up that meathead guy with them. That's like they took the trope of the red shirt and cranked it to plaid.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like no.
Yeah.
And the way they drop them through atmosphere and like little, I was like, what?
Yeah.
No. Even in the original series, if you say this isn't a reboot. Yeah. They didn't have the technology to do that.
And you can't use the example of the Kelvin timeline being broken that they suddenly have this new technology.
Yeah.
Again, here's the reason why the Kelvin timeline movies
it's a Red Bull moment where they just drop guys from I don't know.
Here's the reason why this movie makes me cranky. Why these movies make me cranky. Star Trek, the reason why Enterprise is so divisive amongst fans is because Enterprise went into the past. It went to established history that we knew plenty enough about.
Yeah.
The issue with Star Trek 2009 and the rest of the Kelvin universe movies is they didn't go forward. They went back into the past again. They did prequels. There is nothing that needs to be done any further in the past.
No.
Star Trek has always been about the future, the next big thing.
Yep.
And if you can't find an original story or an original crew or an original way to introduce a new series, what are you doing as a what? Give the property over to someone who can, because there's no reason that we needed to have any of this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at how much they did with Deep Space Nine.
Oh my gosh.
They didn't in Deep Space Nine. They didn't really go anywhere new. They were in the same spot all the time. But it was the internal conflict.
Well, and also there was the religion of the Bajor religion. Yeah, there was Cardassians.
Well, I'm saying it's like, but everything was right there.
Yeah.
Next door.
Yep.
And it was just this huge melting, stirring pot.
Yep. It was brilliant.
Right
stories.
on the edge of Starfleet space with these conflicting groups right there. That made that so magnificent. And it's kind of like there was no further exploration kind of stuff going on, but they delivered gold.
Yep.
And gold plus latinum.
Yep.
For my Ferengi friends.
Yep. So the rest of this movie
but
is
I'm
just,
a red shirt. I would have been dead anyway. I would have been that guy that actually
I would have been in engineering. So
oh, the other thing I wanted to point out with this, I completely forgot about it because I forgot my notes home. But Starfleet Academy is for the cream of the crop people.
Yes.
These are the leaders, your higher up, whatever people, all your massive talented.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go to the academy to join Starfleet.
Yeah.
You can just be Joe Schmo that just walks up and be like, I want to be a crewman.
Yep. You can be a non-com. You can be you can go.
There's the majority of the people on that ship never set foot in academy.
Right.
Academy is
for command.
Yeah. For command, for like the Harvard people, the massive MIT. Yeah. These are the super folks that we're taking them and we're putting them where they should be.
Yep.
You know, that's what Academy is. That's why it's so important.
Yep.
Which is why it's like, Kirk, they should have just thrown him out for the way he was acting.
Oh, yeah.
And been like, if you want to take part in Starfleet, you're going to start as a cargo hauler.
Yeah, you'll be a non-com.
Yeah.
You'll go work as assistant to the undersecretary of the cleaning of the toilets.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just finish off this stupid movie. The Narada, his wife got killed. He's mad. He's coming after blah, blah, blah.
He's mad about stuff that was kind of beyond everybody's control.
Right. Place blame on the Federation for doing nothing to save his planet. Nero knows only that his world, the promise of the future, was destroyed. He intends to destroy every world of the Federation.
Because they also threw out a lot of stuff where it's kind of like, in Star Trek, there is the prime directive.
Yeah.
We do not influence things. We try not to do as much damage to other things as we can. Whatever.
Yeah.
They kind of throw it out the window where it's kind of like, we're going to interfere with Romulans, who the Romulans at the time were just war people.
Yeah.
We are the Empire of War.
Yeah.
And they're the evil brothers and sister race to the Vulcans, by the way.
Yep. Yes, they were.
And so it's kind of like, well, the Spock for some reason goes to the Vulcan High Command science folks and say, hey, we can stop that the energy from the supernova, because not the supernova goes off anyway.
Yeah.
From hitting Romulan, which planet? It's like Romulus, the main planet.
Yeah.
For the Romulan Empire, and with this experimental red matter, which causes singularities.
Yeah.
Can we give it a shot?
Yeah.
And they're like, go for it.
Yeah.
And so Spock takes off in an experimental ship, because they say that too about the weird jellyfish ship, and sends him out there to go do it. But for some reason, he still doesn't make it in time. And so Nero blames the Vulcans and the Federation for all of this, when it's like, they were trying to help you.
Yeah.
They were breaking the prime directive to try and save your people.
Yeah. The thing about this movie is that when you have a bad guy, they just need to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
There doesn't need to be a history. There's the bad guy.
Yeah.
That's the reason why Undiscovered Country and the Klingon Empire and that whole dynamic works, is because they're bad. They're just bad guys, and they hate. And there's like there's a reason.
There's that big beautiful arc for the whole Klingon Empire to come around to joining Starfleet. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's insanity, but it's the best kind of insanity.
Oh yeah,
but it's well done. And here, okay,
I mean, we get to see that conflict splayed out over a bunch of movies and some of Next Generation's TV show where they touch on it. We're just kind of like, this is a beautiful arc where a whole people come around.
Yep. Oh yeah, the adult written show, the adults in the room. back to being the children in the room. Kirk and Spock of old meet on an ice planet with an ice monster. I don't even care anymore.
Coincidence. Somehow he lands next door
I
to
don't
where
know.
old Spock is shacking up.
So Spock's entered moments later. It appeared as moments. He was 25 years late. I don't know. Kirk explains he was left on the planet. The Spock he did. However, Kirk has better. But I don't care about any of this.
Yeah. And then on the other coincidence, Scotty tends to be on the same planet conducting experiments.
I hate everything.
And it's kind of like
I hate all
coincidence. Why?
I know.
Why are you doing this?
I don't. He must relieve the Vulcan's younger self of command by provoking him and showing everyone that Spock has too personally and emotionally compromised as a result of Vulcan's destruction, which is, I just think that's the dumbest thing ever. They are taken to the bridge where an astounded Spock demands to know whatever. I don't care. Following his outburst, Spock returns. Blah, blah, blah. The Romulan ship deploys its drill. I don't even care anymore. Meanwhile, the ships are out of work.
Yeah, I always found that the weirdest way. Like, how is that drill? What?
And in the end of the movie, Kirk gets command of the Enterprise.
Yeah, of course. How does that drill function? Why does it cut off all communications when it's active? When it's what?
I have 3 words for you.
What?
I don't care. I came into this thinking that I was gonna be like, yeah, I really loved the reboot. It was the favorite out of the 3.
But then you took a harder lens at it, right? And it's kind of like, wow. Aaron is having a me moment. I'm so proud of him. He's coming around. He saw something through the lens, which when they say,
it all down.
look at it seriously, James, and then I just, it makes me want to throw up in the mouth.
Yeah, the elder Spock meets with his younger self and informs him he helped Kirk directly, blah, 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 good luck, as the elder Spock leaves to help the remaining Vulcans establish a colony. The younger Spock returns to the Enterprise and asks Kirk if he can serve as first officer, to which Captain Kirk agrees, and the Enterprise warps away.
Oh, there's so much stuff they changed and made weird, too, and all of that, too. The running gun battle with phasers shooting little balls instead of, like, the beams. Running in a gun battle in the open, because if you look at where they run, they're like exposed right through the middle of these things. I'm kind of like, you are so dead.
I hate everything.
It's so bad.
I hate it all.
This movie's so bad.
It's terrible.
And like they just kind of like threw the baby out with the bathwater, man. And it's like I said, this is Star Trek in name only. It's not Star Trek. It forgot what Star Trek is.
Yeah.
And what it is at heart.
Yeah.
It's whoosh.
Yeah, it only gets worse.
And this is the problem with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Or it's like this is like a huge. Oh man, Abrams did the same thing to Star Wars.
Yep.
So hey, it's kind of like you just took whatever and just.
Yep. It's terrible.
Made something and it was terrible.
Yep.
It's not very interesting.
Nope.
It has no heart into it.
Yep.
It's just schlocky stuff.
Yep. I'm not disagreeing at all.
It's Star Trek the action movie.
It's Star Trek.
You might as well had like Kirk be like someone that looked like an old 80s Arnold Schwarzenegger in a Conan outfit.
It's Dawson's Creek.
Give him like huge muscles.
It's Dawson's Creek on starships.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Terrible.
Like
Melrose Place.
Like, just watching these movies back to back.
Yeah.
And like I would recommend people
watch the
if you're curious, watch them back to back.
Yeah, and just
and see the difference.
Yep.
Because the motion picture that first movie is basically just like an extended episode of Star Trek.
Yep. And it gets much better because next week we're going to do Wrath of Khan versus
New Wrath of Khan.
New Wrath of Khan, also known as Into Darkness, and that one is going to be there are going to be words.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm fearful of this too because I like Benedict Cumberbatch.
I think he's a brilliant actor. He should not have been in Into Darkness, but we will get there when we get there. So now that you've listened to us destroy the first Star Trek movie by what's his bucket, he who will not be named, Lens Flare Man himself, stick around for next week.
Stick around,
stick around, y'all. Oh my God, have a little time. Stick around for next week when we have another exciting adventure of watching original Star Trek, Wrath of Khan, and then we're gonna deal with the new Trek, Wrath of Khan.
Oh, it's like this one we didn't scratch too deep, folks. But I mean, we don't really need to if you go and you take the time to look at it.
Yeah.
And just being like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do we go from this to this?
Lens flares.
Lens flare.
Yep.
Like it seemed like anything that need to be shiny, they decide, we need to make it blinding on the audience.
Make it shiny. Okay, well, on that note, my name is Aaron.
And I'm James.
And we're going to be back again next week for more Star Trek excitement and adventure.
Yeah, take care, everybody.
Yeah, live long and prosper, and don't watch the new Trek.
The raspberry flapovers will be out in a moment. The kitchen is closed.
You've been listening to the Nerds by Screenlight podcast, presented by Create at Morgan Productions, located in Fort Morgan, Colorado, USA. For more information on our production house, other podcasts hosted here, and further details, please visit www.createatmorgan.org. You can find us on Twitter at the handle CreateAtMorgan. Create at Morgan is a school club at Lincoln High School, our alternative education campus in Morgan County. Our sponsor is Aaron DeLay, a language arts teacher at Lincoln. Send any feedback to adelayedteacher@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to our podcast.